Thinking Basketball Podcast. My name is Ben. Welcome to, we are in the middle of the second round, I guess, right now. And, today is a tough one. We got a flu game situation going on. We weren't sure if we're going to have a pod. We weren't sure what we're going to do. Cody has been slammed by something, and he's going to give it his best go today. So I just want to, in advance, apologize if we don't have, an hour and a half of banter about the Odyssey trailer and whatever else we get into talking about. I want to thank everybody who joins us every week and gives us such great support. So many longtime listeners who entertain Cody and I while we talk about Cody and I. Let's keep going. While we talk about basketball and movies and food and exercise and whatever ideas we banter about back and forth. But today we'll see what we can do, because in one sense, this is reflective of where we are in the NBA playoffs. The Thunder have dismissed the Lakers summarily. It wasn't even with zero resistance in their series. The Knicks and the Sixers had some resistance. We could talk about that. And then the Knicks were just like, we're going to win all the games, and the last one by 40 points like we like to do. And they've moved on. And yet there are still two series going on that are very hard fought. Victor Wembanyama was ejected in the last game. That's been an incredibly chippy series. So I'll throw it to you, Cody. You are the sort of, special guest here with your status. Where would you like to start?
Man, I don't even know where to start. I think when we talked about the Lakers Thunder, my only concern was, I'm like, hey, can the Lakers keep it within 10 points per game in each one of them? And I just pulled it up right now, and they didn't. I don't think it was within 10 points per game on any of them. But I think game 4 was at least pretty competitive. I'm sorry if I hallucinate anything, but, J-Dub playing his 14 minutes yesterday. I just don't think he's the second best player anymore on that Thunder team. That might be... Oh, I'm sorry.
What's going on right now?
I must be mistaken at
God.
this point. But no, I do have to say that that's the most recent game that I just watched, the one that was yesterday. And the second half,
close, right?
The second half was genuinely really, really entertaining. I thought the Lakers put up a really good fight. That third quarter, they really outscored the Thunder well, and I thought they had some good stuff working out. Rui Hachimura was just on an absolute heater throughout the entire playoffs, so that was really cool to see. Austin Reeves was making more plays than I thought he had been making before that. But at the end, the Thunder just overwhelming. Shea can just get into that, that snake dribble, pull up, step back, get the and one type of stuff. It was just way too much for the Lakers. So, fun, valiant effort. But we could just say goodbye to them, and we'll see the Thunder in the next series.
Okay. All right, hold on. Timeout. The Lakers outscored the Thunder in the third quarter, but they also were only down 5 when the game ended. So just for the record, you are beginning to hallucinate the double figures and other things that are taking place.
Look at the other games, though. That's if you take the average of each one of them, game 1, they lost by 18. Game 2, I think it was also 18. Game 3, 23. Like, I don't care if it was a 5-point game. Like, the average was not 10. Like I hoped. But at least game 4 is entertaining.
The average margin of victory in the series for the Thunder turned out to be 16 points per game, which the Lakers were almost outscored by 30 per game in the regular season when they played. So that's pretty big progress. They cut that margin in half. But we talked about it. That series was almost treated as an 8-1 series in terms of the odds makers, and it panned out very much like an 8-1 matchup would. We never got to see Luka Doncic. So Oklahoma City moving on. They will sit and wait at 8-0 in the playoffs in the Western Conference Finals. My big thoughts about that, since we want to start there. I don't know if you have anything to say about the Lakers in terms of putting their season to rest. I would like to throw JJ Redick a bone. People were very confused about Rui Hachimura not being on the court for their final possession last night when they were down 3. But I thought it was pretty obvious he wanted a much better screener for the exact after timeout play that he drew up. And that after timeout play involved Maxi Kleber, who came in to set the screen, setting a really good screen and getting an open shot for Austin Reeves, which was the shot they wanted. So I was a little confused as to why Rui wasn't on the court either. But when you look at the play and it works, I was like, oh, okay. So he wanted a screener for that play in theory, and they got what they wanted. Hard to be too critical of that. On the Oklahoma City side, man, we've talked about it before, but Ajay Mitchell That guy is, I think I asked you in the middle of the season, I was like, can you name 50 better players than AJ Mitchell? We didn't talk about him or have him on our sub all-star team, but some of that was health. I think he was out of the lineup for a little bit at some point in the middle of the season. I didn't hallucinate that, right? AJ Mitchell sat for a little while in the middle of the season. He didn't play like 75 or 80 games. Nobody plays 75 or 80 games this year, right?
No, Mikal Bridges does. I thought we had some kind of conversation about AJ during the season. I think maybe during the sub all-star conversation, we may have punted on him and said, hey, he was playing at this level, but we just haven't quite seen it. I don't know. Apparently this whole thing's just a hallucination, but I thought at one point we were shouting out just how good he was looking. But yeah, his ability to create off the dribble, he's knocking down the jump shot. I think a lot of, with them missing J-Dub during a huge stretch of the playoffs, there's always the question of where does the secondary creation come from? Because, Chet Holmgren is great. He's shooting an absurd percentage around the rim. I don't remember what it was, but I thought it was close to 90%, if not more than 90% within 3 feet of the basket during these playoffs. But he's not exactly the kind of guy that you're going to swing to. He's going to break someone down off the dribble and create some easy shots for people. But AJ Mitchell stepping in, that's exactly what he's doing. If there's possessions where Shea's not even on, he's like, I'm just going to be the primary guy. Like, they can't handle my left-handedness where I'm just spinning around people, making these floaters, diming up guys. So just incredible stuff from him, and hats off for him showing how valuable he is two rounds into these playoffs already.
Well, I mean, I think that's the thing. He has this primary offense, or you might think of him as a secondary offensive weapon. And then when you're playing bench units, you can become the primary. But his level of offense, and this is what we talked about in the regular season, although I honestly can't remember if we talked about it on one of our episodes or privately or in some other context or something. But I mean, it's high level, right? It's sort of like championship or playoff level offense. And you're seeing this in these two series so far. We'll see how it looks in the next series, depending on who they play. But I think just skill wise and talent wise, it will be pretty similar, because that's what you get with AJ Mitchell as an on-ball player, with his moves, his ability to get to his left hand. There was a moment I think it was in the fourth quarter last night, where they were shading him and I think trying to keep him from his left hand. And then he still got back to the left hand. And the second the defender's hips opened and he got back to the left hand, I just said to my wife, I was like, you can't let him get to the left hand. Like, I'm turned into like an old curmudgeon watching the game. Oh, you can't let him get to the left hand. That's how good AJ Mitchell is right now. So Oklahoma City, we'll see. They haven't had the hardest competition to start the playoffs, but they've also just made it look really easy relative to other teams. Phoenix was a pesky team and a really good defensive team in the regular season. They just went through them like a hot knife through butter. And the Lakers obviously down Luka Doncic, but you can see against lesser teams, the Lakers are spunky or dangerous or things like that, and they completely neutered them. So that's Oklahoma City. Any final thoughts on the Lakers, or we can move to another series?
No, it's just too bad that Luka couldn't be healthy and that Reeves couldn't get himself to full health for the run. Not necessarily saying that they would have made it that much more competitive. Like, I think even a full strength Lakers team would have struggled mightily to, I don't know, eke out 5, much less even 6 games against this Thunder team. And somebody brings up in the chat, I think that's a good question. How do you feel about this current iteration of the Thunder contending for a championship compared to where they were last year? Like, do you think this is a better Thunder team right now, or were they better a year ago?
I think that's really hard to answer, not just because of experience, but because Jalen Williams, J-Dub, was the second best player on the team last year, and they did not have the same depth in their bench. But this year, they don't have Jalen Williams. They do have the depth in their bench. I'm not quite sure if the league has caught up. I would say the league has caught up a little bit in terms of copying some of their defensive tactics. So in a way, last year, I look at last year's team and I'm just like, they're the team I think is most likely going to win the title. We talked about that all year because of their defense. So it's going to get bumpy, as it did in 2 of their playoff series, but their defense is just so ridiculously good that it gives them this giant margin of error. This year, I don't know if their defense is quite that good relative to the league or relative to the other offenses and the way things are played or in the playoffs right now, especially with the crazy physicality, which maybe is something we should talk about when we do the Spurs-Wolves update in a second. But they do have this depth where they have more skill, like Isaiah Joe getting pushed, Aaron Wiggins getting pushed out of the rotation, Isaiah Joe getting pushed down the rotation, and picking up Jared McCain, who's shooting it like a flamethrower. And here it is. I didn't make this up, Cody. Ajay Mitchell, he missed a ton of time in the middle of the season, played 57 games. And in the regular season, he averaged about 19 points every 75 possessions he played. In the playoffs through 2 rounds, very similar efficiency, right around average, 24 points per 75 possessions. The Thunder are outscoring their opponents by 28 points per 100 possessions when Ajay Mitchell is on the court. And when Ajay Mitchell is on the bench, they're getting outscored in the playoffs in his minutes on the bench. He has a plus 30 on off in the playoffs right now. So it's stuff like that where I look at them and the question is still fuzzy, but it's obviously, we could get to the end of this and go like, there's a reason why we think this year's Thunder are even better. They had future All-Star Ajay Mitchell coming off the bench, something like that.
I know it is really tough to do a one-to-one comparison without knowing how healthy J-Dub will be, because he's very good. Like you talk about, maybe the defense isn't quite as good as they were relative to last year. J-Dub is a big part of that. J-Dub was all over our thinkies last season when we were talking about perimeter helping, defense switchability, things like that. Just a tremendous defensive player. That doesn't even talk about the offensive things he's able to do, pushing in transition, second side creation. So I think it's really tough to have that conversation without also having that health conversation. But I think Ajay Mitchell, what he is maybe showing me that, we can use to talk about some other series too. I don't know about you, Ben, but it stands out to me just how important it is in these playoffs. And maybe it has to do with the upgraded physicality that we're seeing of just how important it is to be able to create off the dribble, right? Like a lot of these guys can get into the paint off a bunch of screens or whatever else, but when you can be grabbed by a bunch of people or shoved off your spot, it's just harder to get there. But if you have the ball and you can kind of wiggle around and dribble through a lot of that contact, that's been at a premium right now in these playoffs. And when you have somebody that's not getting as much attention as Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who's the premier player in the league at doing that, and you're just like the off guy over here pulling that off, that's incredibly valuable for a team like the Thunder. So I almost think he's a stand-in for just how important it is to be able to touch the paint off your own handle during these playoffs.
I see that while you've been hopped up on flu medication and in a hallucinatory state this week, you've had some good basketball thoughts. Things are happening right now. This is shades of MJ against Utah, because that's such a great point. The act of creating off the dribble in the NBA has become so commoditized that it's easy for everyone to do, because everyone can carry the carrying rules get sillier every year. Everyone can carry the ball. Cooper Flagg is now pushing. I just would never expect someone who couldn't dribble a couple of years ago to be the one you're going, is he pushing the palming rules past Allen? Allen, you have all these figures historically that carry the ball more and more, and then it becomes normalized. So you've got guys carrying more, you've got guys traveling more, you've got guys gather stepping more, pivoting more, just all sorts of weird things happening, along with the entire league picking up the tricks of, hey, when I'm driving the ball, I might not have a step on you, but I'm just going to put my shoulder into you, and now I get free throws. So this makes, to your point, in the regular season, this makes on-ball shot creation or putting the defense in rotation very easy compared to what it used to be. When we get into the playoffs now and we allow this insane physicality, all of a sudden you feel it in certain series. The Celtics felt it, I think, at times, especially in the game Tatum was out, where you're just like, it's hard actually to break down the defense and pressure them and force a double team. Whereas even in that series, Joel Embiid and his mismatch in the paint drew lots of defensive attention and drew a double team. Similar things in, the Lakers series, when the Lakers are like, all right, we have LeBron James, and against Houston, Marcus Smart can run a pick and roll. That's it. Can we somehow get Luke Kennard to actually get the defense to respond to him? It still is, in many ways, the most important skill in basketball. And we have seen a ton of double teams in these playoffs. That's another dynamic that we're seeing. The Spurs are double teaming Anthony Edwards, sometimes out on the perimeter. The Lakers, we did some content for members, patreon.com/thinkingbasketball, where they were double teaming Kevin Durant in the game he played. They took, I think, basically the same double team scheme and then applied it to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, even turned it up and put it on steroids. And this is a theme of, hey, we are not going to let these great perimeter players beat us, especially if we think we're much better when we can get the ball out of their hands, and they're not going to completely dice us up when we go send a double at them. So I think this has and always has been a huge part of winning playoff basketball.
And I want to use that to transition to I don't think it's an exaggeration to say it's the most physical of the series that we've seen so far, but the Spurs Timberwolves boxing match that we've watched, the amount of physicality that the Wolves have dialed up it's pretty incredible. It's kind of like what we were seeing with the Houston Rockets in round 1 against the Warriors last year. It feels very similar to that. But what I kept thinking about when I was watching the most recent game is Stephon Castle, being as young of a player he is, and obviously Dylan Harper and De'Aaron Fox as well, but Castle was the one that really stood out to me. There's a couple plays where like Jaden McDaniels is on him all the way up, like 94 feet sort of thing, just like draped on him. And you can see him, he's kind of like, he's not whipping his head back like you see the guys that get some contact, they do like, oh, sort of thing, you know, makes it seem like they're an actor that just got like hit by an arrow. They're like an extra and Minas Tirith sort of thing, right?
Yeah.
He's not doing that. He's like taking this contact. There's a screen. He gets like downhill a little bit. Julius Randle comes up and he's like, oh, I can't make a shot or make a pass, so I'm just going to throw my shoulder at people. And he just like trucks him, no foul called. Again, Castle's just kind of like trying to dribble through it all. And finally, there's a stoppage. And then you see him go and complain to the ref. But I'm like, man, you have to be like, it's not just being a good dribbler. Like anyone can go take a ball and look really good in an empty gym when you're doing all like the spider drill between your legs and you're going between the cones and stuff. To be a really good ball handler in this league, in these playoffs right now, you have to be able to have the ball on a string while being walloped by guys who are like 6'8", 250 pounds, 240 pounds, right? And it's unbelievable like what some of these guys are able to do. So I was watching Stephon Castle, and I think he's the guy I was the most impressed with. I'm like, wow, that is a strong ball handler. Because if you can deal with this kind of pressure, like, there's nothing else that's going to shock you compared to what you're seeing right now.
I think this is the most physical I've ever seen the NBA.
Wow.
Full stop. It's somewhat out of control. It's more than somewhat out of control. It's not completely out of control. It's somewhere between somewhat out of control and completely out of control. I love defenders being allowed to exist in space. So when I see these possessions as they bring it up into the backcourt, they cross the timeline, they get into the front court, they're moving left to right across the front court. And as that ball handler's moving in all those instances, to what you're describing, when the defender bodies them up and gives them some contact, I love that. I think the defender should be allowed to exist and make contact. That is different than defenders just chucking and trucking and fouling all the time. So there are a number of plays where, I mean, you mentioned there was that Castle play that you pointed out where he is trying to get around someone and gets fouled so many times that Dwayne Wade just starts chuckling on the broadcast and was like, which one of those was, they were all fouls. What's happening? And you see the replay, and it's a lot of hand pushing in the chest so the player can't get by you. That's different. So I think it's super physical, but I also think they're kind of missing the boat on both ends. When you're a defender and you slide in front of the ball and you try to put your chest in front of the ball and the offensive player puts his shoulder through your chest, that to me should always, and it was in the past, it's not anymore, it should always be an offensive foul, because basically you've beaten that player to the spot. There are some exceptions, but don't worry about it. That is different. So what they're doing right now is when that happens, they're calling it offensive foul, and they're using this terminology. The player was not in a legal guarding position. No one's defined that, but they just keep saying it. I'm pretty sure it means it has to be stationary with 2 feet on the ground, which is psychotic. I don't understand why we've done that. Okay, so that's going to be a defensive foul. But at the same time, Cody, when you're on the perimeter and you're playing defense and someone beats you, they cross you over and they're going to go by you, you can take both of your arms and just reach out and like grab his chest and be like, nah, you're not going by me. And that's not a foul like 90% of the time in the playoffs, to say nothing of what's happening off the ball. Off the ball contact has basically reverted back to where we were in 2004 when they needed to change the rules about off-ball movement away from the ball. A lot of holding, a lot of grabbing, a lot of hand fighting. And frankly, I'd have to go back and review tape in the offseason. It might have exceeded where we've ever been in 2004. It's just full on 1975. You're in the paint, just everybody's grabbing each other's jerseys. And now that I'm at the end of my old man rant, I think the point of this is that it makes these offensive skills a premium, and it changes the calculus and the equation for certain teams who maybe were relying on that, or maybe were less physically equipped to handle this kind of punishment. that is being doled out on some of these possessions.
And honestly, it like that series, I don't know if you agree with me on this, but I don't necessarily know if a lot of these games have been very aesthetically pleasing, right? Like, I don't know if you can watch them and be like, yes, this is what basketball should look like, which is interesting because obviously, the Wolves are tied 2-2 now. They were able to keep the lead and win game 4 after Wemby was ejected after the thrown elbow. But people around here like, these are great. This is so much fun to watch. I'm like, oh, that's great. Of course, we're competing for Western Conference Finals berth like we haven't for a couple of years. So it's obviously exciting around here. But my point is like when you're watching a lot of these games, the way that the Spurs were attacking, especially in the second half, was like, all right, we're going to get a rebound. And it doesn't matter, or we can get a rebound after a missed shot, or we're going to inbound it. And then we're going to sprint as fast as we can up the court. We're just going to jam it down your throat here. And if that doesn't work, we're going to bring it out. Maybe we pass to one of our other ball handlers, and they're going to take you one-on-one. And on the other side of the court, right, it was like, well, is Anthony Edwards in? Guess we're going to give him the ball. He's going to have to one-on-one. All the physicality keeps us from doing any other kind of creative stuff. So hoping this person can get downhill or De'Aaron Fox can pull up from 15 feet to make a tough mid-range jumper. And that's kind of what that series has come down to, is whose ball handlers can handle that much pressure to make that many difficult shots. And especially when Wembanyama goes down, the Spurs don't have anything else to live on besides these tough mid-range jumpers. So it's almost like you said, a weird throwback to the dead ball era of like the one-on-one mano-a-mano tough contested jumper. And it's weird to see like that's the skill set that's actually valuable in the playoff series in 2026.
I do think there's a little bit of a difference between when the Spurs have the ball and when the Wolves have the ball in this series. Minnesota, for some reason, I mean, I guess it's just consistent with how Chris Finch has always done things. He doesn't want to change it up. We have a video on this on game 2 for members as well. They just hug to everyone on the outside. So San Antonio is basically attacking in response to how Minnesota is defending, meaning Minnesota is just giving them the entire court to play one-on-one. They're not coming and helping and flooding the paint and shrinking. It's very jarring to watch in today's game because everyone's copying Oklahoma City. So most of the defensive tactics that are working right now around the league are, we're going to shrink the paint. We're going to bring a ton of guys in the lane and create traffic. You see this in the Pistons series, of course. We talked about it with the Magic, but the Knicks even are a team that's like, hey, we are going to get our guys on the edge of the lane and we're going to collapse and rotate back out and close out and maybe run you off the line. You pause any of these possessions in the Spurs game and there's like 38 feet of space in the middle of the paint because we were like, where are all the Minnesota defenders? They're like holding hands with whoever is out near half court. They're like, nah, I'm not leaving my guy. It's just it's almost like Kawhi Leonard coached a basketball team. It's like, everyone just guard your yard. That's it. No, that's how you play defense. No helping allowed. If you get beat, it's on you, buddy. The embarrassment is on national TV. We've completely exposed you. So I think that is driving what's happening with San Antonio, along with the fact that the Spurs have all these guards and they want to play quickly and they want to get the ball out of the basket and jam it down your throat, like you said. And then on the other end, I think that's the Wemby effect most of the time, where it's like, okay, when Wemby's in the game, what else are you can't go to the basket. You can run your stuff, but it's not really going to get you. No, the Spurs don't need to collapse because the Spurs are so good at playing this one-man zone where Wembanyama stays near the basket. And so if you ran off-ball action anyway and you slip to the basket, it's very similar to what the Los Angeles Lakers did to the Warriors in their 2023 playoff series, where you keep Anthony Davis low, you push all of the cuts downhill. It's like, great, you can hit Jaden McDaniels or whoever you want on a cut heading into the paint. He's still going to have to deal with the Wemby problem when he gets there. Of course, without him in game 4 after the elbow suspension, the paint opened wide up again, and just like it always has in this series, it's night and day, or any San Antonio series, it's night and day when Wemby's on the floor versus when Wemby goes to the bench. So super tough series, super physical series, maybe sometimes crossing the line on certain areas. And we are in this weird position of recording right before a pivotal game 5. And I'm just going to pretend that we already saw the game 5. It was an incredible performance from Victor Wembanyama, Cody. His defense, his offense. I mean, when he plays like that, how can you beat San Antonio? Now you do one where the Spurs lose and the Wolves are amazing. And then people, if that happens, then that'll sound good too.
Well, I think the thing that no one saw coming for this game 5 was when Terrence Shannon Jr. was going to drop 50 without taking a 3-point attempt. Like that, to me, that's the most impressive part. He was just relentless going downhill, right?
This was a real chance for you. Actually, you took it too far. The meds are kicking in. Okay.
But like you said about both teams not really helping off us much, even with Wemby out, right? So this is actually more of the case when Wemby is out, because the two bigs that are out there, Luke Kornet, Rudy Gobert. Kornet's a fantastic rim protector. Gobert, generational rim protector. And obviously Wemby is just like an outlier rim protector. But when these two guys are on, neither of them can stretch the floor, which means when they're defending each other, they're basically always in good position to protect the rim at some point, right? So that sort of helps with everyone being able to stay at home, because the big man can protect the rim even more than if they have to go out and help somebody that's spreading out. Like if you have Wembanyama out there, Gobert actually has to worry about somebody that's going to take some threes. Kornet's not going to take those threes. Gobert's not going to take those threes, right? And so that's the other element that makes it like a mid 2000s basketball game, is the big man. It's like, well, we're not really going to guard you if you're out 15 plus feet here, so we can protect the rim just a little bit more. So I think that's the other element when Wemby is not on the court for what's happening in this series.
Who do you think is the leader in our playoff box plus minus model that we have for our subscribers, patreon.com/thinkingbasketball? Who do you think is the leader in playoff box plus minus after wherever we are, 10 or 11 playoff games?
I know the answer to this, because I was also going to try and do a cheeky transition asking this question. So okay. I just want the audience right now
to think about it.
Like over the next couple of seconds, who do you think is the leader in playoffs box plus minus for the Thinking Basketball database? You got an answer? Ben, whenever you want, you can reveal this one.
Karl Anthony Towns is the leader. And so what you have now, forget whether that actually means he's been the best player. Just saying statistically, we've got everything he's doing. 23 points on plus 15% true shooting. He's absolutely on fire. He's turned into Nikola Jokic in terms of the passing, and then he's a spacer, and that's why I thought of this. Because our model will give you some credit for being a big that spaces like that and puts that pressure on you, because that's the segue that you mentioned. When Cat is on the court, he's pulling you out. It's an interesting dynamic in the series against Joel Embiid in Philadelphia, where, we talked about it last time, Brunson is going to attack him. They're going to put him in this ball screen action to challenge the drop coverage or pull up 3-point shooting that Jalen has. But also, when he's not in that action or when he's recovering, there's not a man necessarily rolling down the paint. You've got Karl Anthony Towns just popping threes in your face, or, as you've chronicled so many times, Cody, using that threat of that shot to up fake or attack the closeout, get downhill, especially to that right hand, those big lumbering steps, and the finish at the basket. And, the Knicks offense has really been unlocked since they started playing through Cat more. We had a member video on it where it was game 3 or 4 in Atlanta. It might have been game 4 in Atlanta, where they started running way more actions through Cat at the top and from the elbow. They actually ran the same play from the elbow for Jalen Brunson, screening out of the corner on a flex screen like 5 or 6 times in the game. And since then, it has just been more and more of this type of offense, more Cat initiating, more of the little delay action with Cat getting the ball at the top of the key and then using off-ball actions for the guard. So there's an instance where the off-ball stuff can work more, because you're using the big man as a point guard, you're creating that space, and then your fallback is still going to be like handoff 2-man game, very similar to what the Nuggets have succeeded with Murray and Jokic over the years in the postseason. So, So the audience is pointing out, by the way, that a second ago it sounded like you said protect the women when you were talking about that playoff series. And I was like, it's true. That series has been very violent and dangerous. We do need to protect the women and children. So,
oh man, I don't know what I said in the the crinkles of my voice there. I tried to say rim. So I don't know how that could have been.
It came out.
Did I say rim and Wembanyama? Did that all kind of get
it
mixed
was a portmanteau of rim and Wembanyama.
Rim and Wembanyama. That's incredible. No, I think this is really cool for Towns, who is maybe one of the more maligned stars that we've had in a very long time. And he is now in his third straight conference finals berth here. Like, that's pretty incredible. Like, good for him to do that. Because listen, I'm not saying that this absolves him of everything. There's still the defensive issues and all of the other things that's going on. But at the end of the day, when you have a big man, this is something that I just think about so much. The stretch five, or what you're able to do offensively with your five, unlocked so much with your team. Right. And there are so many guys that you think can be a solid stretch five, even like Chet Holmgren, something like that. I don't know his numbers off the top of my head, but I know last year in the playoffs, he was shooting like sub 30% from three. I think even like Miles Turner, when the Pacers made the finals last year, I'm pretty sure he was around 30% from three. Like these guys, Brook Lopez, I think, has a strong history of when he was with the Bucks of not having a high percentage shooting from three. Like these stretch fives and a lot of these other guys that take a lot of threes in the regular season, it doesn't always translate. But something that Towns is able to do there with his passing, with his driving ability, with his stretch three ability, it unlocks a ton. And it's the same kind of thing that we've talked about, or you said earlier, about Jokic a little bit more. And I'm not saying that Towns and Jokic are similar offensive players, but if you want to talk about somebody that can shoot, that can pass, that can attack off the dribble, it's Towns. And guess what? If you throw somebody that's smaller on him as well, and you're like, oh, we're going to put one of these guards or forwards on him, he's a strong dude. He's going to back you right down and hit you with a little hook shot, or he's smart enough to get off the ball, get in the post, and hit you with a kind of post shot there. So as an offensive player, he's been about as complete as one could possibly be from what we've seen. And of course, he's surrounded by a lot of offensive talent. But Ben, that's what we preach all the time on this podcast. This is all that we're preaching, is that you are the best kind of offensive player when your skills are elevated next to other high-end offensive players. Like Mikal Bridges is reborn all of a sudden. We haven't seen OG for a couple of games, but when he was in there, he was killing it. Jalen Brunson, obviously, off the dribble. Deuce McBride, he came out and hit like 5 straight three-pointers or some silliness like that to put away. I don't even know who they were just playing. Who they just beat in the second round?
Philadelphia 76ers.
The 76ers. He came out here and dropped like 100 points in the first quarter to put them away, right? And so the Knicks team is just rolling. Can I read some fun numbers to you right now?
Yes, because I was actually going to give you a quiz that I was hoping I would be able to stump you with. So read some numbers.
So I'm not even going to say people's names, but if we just read the on-court rating for each of these Knicks players.
The offensive rating or the net?
The net rating.
Okay. All right. I was going to ask you about offensive rating. You're ruining my fun.
I'm sorry. But if we just look at minutes played for the playoffs for the Knicks, let's start with Jalen Brunson. Plus 22. Josh Hart, plus 21. Mikal Bridges, plus 19. Karl Anthony Towns, plus 22. OG, plus 21. Deuce McBride, plus 25. Jordan Clarkson, plus 30. Mitchell Robertson, plus 28. I don't know what's going on with this Knicks team, but they are on some kind of a win streak, and they are looking, I don't know, man. Like, we talked a lot about the invincibility of the Thunder team, but if this Knicks team keeps rolling, I'm pretty excited about what they're able to do here.
All right, maybe I can get you on this one. What is the New York Knicks offensive rating with Miles McBride on the court in the 2026 playoffs?
It's got to be absurd. Like I just said,
what is the New York Knicks offensive rating?
He's plus 25. Plus 25 net. I mean, he's got to be like a 130.
It's 131.
Okay.
131, which is almost as good as the Thunder offensive rating with Chet Holmgren on the court, which is 132.
Oh, wow.
So those two teams have just been cleaning up in the postseason. Yes, what were you going to say?
So what? Because I know a big part of what the New York Knicks were able to do is take advantage of Joel Embiid. Like, it looks like defensively, the mobility wasn't there. They were picked, like, it wasn't just a Jalen, like you just said, it wasn't just a Jalen Brunson parade of pick and roll, attacking off the dribble. There's the Karl Anthony Towns. Mikal Bridges was attacking him off the dribble. They were pushing it in transition, like, constantly, and just trying to get any opportunity they could that way. Why were they so much more effective against Philadelphia versus what we saw from the Boston Celtics in round one?
I'm going to say something that people aren't going to like. here. So I didn't want to really go there, but I'll go there. I think this is one of those series that's a sweep that was actually much closer than the sweep.
Ooh.
And I know the margin of victory is huge. I know they got blown out in the last game. There's a lot of things that are great for New York, right? New York looked like the better team. They played like the better team. They won the close games. But in the first round series, the 76ers were blown out in game 1. And they were blown out in game 4. And they were down 3-1 because they were able to hold on and win a fourth quarter game in game 2 in Boston. That made it 3-1 after the game 4 blowout. In the next round, they were blown out in game 1. They were blown out in game 4. And they played 2 close fourth quarter games, and they could not hold one of those games. In fact, in one of the games, I think it was the last game of the series, the Knicks had the best 3-point shooting luck based on how we've talked about it in past episodes. They were 19 points better in the game on 3-point shooting. They won the game by like 30, so it didn't technically swing the game. But all I'm saying is that you lose Joel Embiid for a game. You have 2 close games. The one in Madison Square Garden in game 2. Was it game 2? I think it was game 2 where Dominic Barlow played. I thought they had great success with that smaller lineup and switching screens. They had to win that game because I think talent-wise and cohesion-wise, the Knicks had an upper hand in this series. But I mean, I'm just saying, like, that's the difference between 3-1, 2-2, 4-0, 6-game series, 4-game series, and the Knicks are feeling great. And especially when you're the Knicks and you end that first round series with a blowout in the game-winning game and the game-closing game, and the second round series you end the closeout game with a blowout as well. I can't talk all of a sudden. I'm, you're doing better than me when it comes to the English language today. But this happens sometimes where I've been thinking about this since I wrote Thinking Basketball, the book, a long time ago. And in Thinking Basketball, the book, there's this concept borrowed from someone else where what number of times does the better team lose a playoff series, because it's best of 7. And I think typically when you ask the average fan on the street, they say never. They say 7 games is enough, like the better team wins. Obviously that's not true from a statistical standpoint. When teams are close, especially you get to a 7-game series, sometimes the weaker team is going to be the team that win, the quote-unquote weaker team, meaning if they kept playing or circumstances were different, they wouldn't actually win the series more than 50% of the time. The 6-game series, sometimes we can have a weaker team kind of steal a couple close games. And if there's 2 or 3 close games in a series and you win them all, and there's weird bounces of the ball, or someone gets a technical foul that they wouldn't normally get, or an official, every game an official. This is why I never like to complain about officiating in basketball, especially in the playoffs. Every playoff game is going to have a couple points go in one direction or the other based on the officiating style, missed calls, etc. It's very hard to get absolutely perfect, even, dead even, the same number of missed calls on both sides for the same number of net points that would be influenced in the game. So this stuff happens. And I guess my question is, like, how often does it happen in a sweep? I think very, very rarely, but I kind of wonder if there's ever been sweeps in NBA history where, like, the weaker team swept. I'm willing to say that that's never happened, but, like, that's whereas statistically, if you ask a statistician who divorces these other things, the human elements and the strategy elements of the series, they would say that the weaker team does get swept sometime. But I think I don't know if I can think of an instance off the top of my head where I'm like, yeah, I thought that team was better and they just couldn't get one. They couldn't get one in 4 tries. So that's anyway.
I guess that the weird thing about basketball is, right, you go back to that first round series between the Celtics and Sixers, you cut the season, like, you're playing your video game and whatever else, and you pause because you're a coward, and you save because you don't want to see what's going to happen when you're not good enough to keep going, and you're like, oh, I lost, I have to go back and reload my save, right? I'm not sure if people save anymore. That feels like a very 2005 sort of video game problem. But anyway, the Celtics are up 3-1. If we were to replay the rest of that series like 10 more times, how many times do the Celtics actually lose that series? And I think when you think about it that way, it's like, yeah, the 76ers came back 3-1. Like, that's not a thing that teams just do like a lot. And obviously major props to the 76ers. Tyrese Maxey shot so much better in the first round than he did in the second round. Joel Embiid, I think like we talked about, even the weaknesses that Embiid had were more easy. Wow. This is part of the talking thing. It's easier for the Knicks to pick on Embiid than it was for the Celtics to pick on him, right? So there's obviously a lot of factors, and I think the Knicks are ultimately, so far from what we've seen, better from how the Celtics were performing. But at the end of the day, it's probably not the higher percentage outcome that the 76ers actually come back 3-1 to beat the Celtics in the first round, which then means it's like, okay, maybe we shouldn't be so shocked by the outcome of the second round. So I totally get what you're saying there.
Someone in the audience is asking me what my favorite sweep is in NBA history. And my immediate reaction off the top of my head is the 1995 NBA Finals with the Rockets and the Magic. I believe the Magic were favorites in the series with Shaquille O'Neal and Penny Hardaway, and Houston wins game 1 in Orlando on the Akeem Olajuwon tip. What do you ask?
What is that? The Nick Anderson free throw missing?
Exactly.
Series?
Yes. That's the Nick Anderson. And then they win game 2 as well. And I think near the end of game 4, Hakeem Olajuwon drains a 3 in the corner in the, hey, we're going to win the finals. Just take a 3. Absolutely incredible. So, to support us, patreon.com/thinking-basketball. That's the best way to do it. It's where we have our extra member content. We'll cut it nice and short today because Cody, with a valiant flu performance. Yes, you have something to say. Yes,
we have to say something. We have to say something about the Cavaliers and whoever they're. I'm sorry,
we do.
You just cut it short. Who are they playing? The Pistons. Oh my God,
you don't even know who they're playing. Why do we have to say?
I've watched. Listen. I didn't watch much of the Thunder Lakers series, but everyone else I'm keeping up with. I promise that I know who everyone's playing. It's a real struggle right now. We have to say something about the Cavaliers Pistons, just something.
Well, I think if we have to say something and we have to acknowledge it, there's no good way to talk about this series. I feel it's 2-2. Donovan Mitchell, a 39-point second half yesterday, which is absolutely incredible. I haven't seen a second of that second half. I've seen a lot of the rest of the series, but it just, I don't know. What would you like to say about the series, Cody?
So this is what makes the Cavaliers, I think, really, really difficult to scout, is they've always had immense spurtability. Donovan Mitchell has always had the ability to go on these enormous runs. Obviously not the ability to go on a 39-point second half heater, like really incredible stuff. But James Harden obviously comes out and he has a few stinkers, but then he can come out there and he hits. I think he starts the game with like 3 straight 3-pointers or something like that. Like Mitchell's creating for him and things like that. But then the Pistons, on the other hand, have the opportunity to just like not know how to put the ball in the basket. So it's like the tortoise and the hare watching this series, where it's just like the Pistons are just going to keep like, fighting for all the possessions and stuff. And then the Cavs are going to forget how to like play team offense. And all of a sudden they like go on these huge runs and then the Pistons get like, that's just what the series feels like to me. Right. So it's tough to know like where this graph ends at the end of the day, but that's ultimately it. Is like, it sounds reductive, but how spurtable are the Cavaliers going to be for the rest of the series? Like that's, to me, that's the solving here.
So you think the Cavs are going to win the series?
I don't know what's going to happen. I'm not going to bet on it because, well, I don't bet. But if I were to bet, I wouldn't bet on this series.
All right. R.I.P. Brandon Clark. We lost a big loss in the league today. I was just looking at data on him last night. Absolutely surreal. 29 years old, Memphis Grizzlies, 7-year veteran. We lost him today. So RIP to him, and thoughts with everyone in the Memphis organization and around the league. Thank you so much for listening with us. Cody battling through the flu. We weren't sure if we were going to be able to do it. We made it till the end. And hope you guys are, as always, enjoying the postseason series. Appreciate all your support and that you are having a great day.